now we're getting into part two
Part
of
two.
Bambi's episodes.
Yes.
We were just talking about books, and Bambi will more than likely write a book one day. And
I've been told that I must now.
you have to now, because you got at least one reviewer or two.
Yes.
Me, Tim and I. So
Yeah.
we're all good. But okay. But now, hopefully you joined part one. This is part two. Now we're going to get into more how you flip the script, traditional narratives.
Yeah.
So I've had a chance to do an overview of some of your work that you do, as someone who's active in the community, a podcaster and an empowerer. So much of your work is around intersecting faith and disability.
Mm-hmm.
While supporting women and girls with disabilities,
Yeah.
right? So there's
Yeah.
a broad range of intersections.
Mm-hmm.
So for our vibrant audience and us too, let's attempt to flip the, I would say, the learning difficulty script, right? And now, can you just share with us, like, what are your perceptions of traditional or normative narratives in the work that you do? So narratives in terms of like create prejudices, stereotypes, things like that.
Yeah. I think in 2025, people are more aware of disabilities. There's a lot more awareness around disability and how that actually doesn't mean that people who identify as having a disability can't do anything. That is kind of a very old way of thinking, in the past you had people with disabilities who were separate from society, in lots of different ways. If they couldn't mask, if they couldn't, show that they could get by, then they were separate. They were separate in schools. They were separate in life. There were separate places for them to be. We do a lot more around inclusion now.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's still a lot of misconception about disabilities out there. So for how far we've come, we still have even further to go, right, in terms of getting people on board. We do really well in the UK, and I guess in America as well. We do really well with those sorts of, supporting those sorts of needs. In Europe, we do well. When it comes to, and I think a lot about families who are of African descent or Asian descent, there's a lot of work to be done, because there's still that kind of in some families there's still that notion that a disability is something to be feared, something to be ashamed of, something to hide away from the world. And a lot of my work with women and girls especially is because I see that there was a point at which my parents were saying we were all going back to Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And when I reflect on that time, when all of those plans were being made, and it coincided with my diagnosis, I think if that had happened, where would I be today? That those support mechanisms that I say I got, in London, that weren't as good as they are now, well, they wouldn't have even existed in Nigeria. They wouldn't have existed for me. I wouldn't have been able to do even half of what I was able to do in school if we had moved. So then I think about all the girls like me who are growing up in Nigeria who haven't got the support or access to the support, unless their parents have money and can send them to schools in the UK or America, or get that support somehow. There will be thousands of them, thousands of me who aren't getting that support, and then also having to deal with the cultural kind of perceptions of disability. We'll just pray about it. Now, I'm not somebody who's sitting here saying that God doesn't do miracles. I absolutely believe that 100%. I'm not saying that at all. But the message I'm trying to promote, the message I'm trying to give is that you already are the miracle. the miracle of healing or getting your eyesight back or getting your hearing back or being able to walk, incredible. Those things happen all the time. But if that doesn't happen, it doesn't make you any less of a human. It doesn't make you any less special or meaningful, or your life have any less purpose than if those things don't happen. I went to all of the healing services. I went to everything. I was prayed for by everybody. Is there something wrong with me? Absolutely not. Took me a while to get to that point to realize that actually there's nothing wrong with my faith.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of those kind of misconceptions, those misconceptions mean that there are lots of people still hidden away and are not seen.
And for people, I love that, a miracle. It makes me think about my mom, because my nephew was born on Halloween. I guess people have a certain perception of Halloween, so she calls him a hallelujah baby.
Nice, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
But in terms of what you just said, in terms of like what we can learn, because I know for me, I was talking about this the other day in one of the episodes about there's so much to learn in terms of life and society, in terms of the different types of ways people have to live and people have to navigate. What is something that you would feel you think in terms of assumptions that I guess the everyday person may have, at least for your disability in particular, right? Something that we can learn from.
The assumptions that they would have about
you, or just in terms of like, if like, say for instance, like I think we talked about last time about how you look away.
Yes.
Or you may be looking away.
Yes.
And people may, like things like that. Yeah,
Okay.
That makes sense.
So I'm not your typical VI person. Just not a typical person, really, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't have a cane. I don't have a dog. I don't wear. I do wear my sunglasses, obviously, when it's. But lots of people do. So I don't look like somebody with a visual impairment. If I'm walking in the street, people often say, or when they see me, they say, well, I didn't know. When they find out, they say, I never knew you had a visual impairment. You hide it so well. I'm not hiding anything. It's just, I'm just being me. But the way in which I carry myself doesn't immediately let you know that I have a disability. And that's, there's a whole, kind of awareness, raising awareness around hidden disabilities, that actually you shouldn't just assume that just because they don't have the traditional things around them, that it doesn't mean that there's no sort of difficulty there. So I can, when I'm looking at somebody, I can look sort of past them, the way in which my eyes focus. There's nothing I can do about that. So in the classroom, it can be really difficult. It was really difficult in the classroom. I had 30 faces in front of me, and I had to learn their names, because if I didn't say their name first and then ask them, then it would be, they'd be looking behind them. Oh, miss, are you talking to me? Even when I did say their name, they would still look behind them. Some people could think that I'm not paying attention, that I'm, that I might be rude, or I might be kind of, because I'm not looking straight at them, so the whole thing around eye contact, people say you must look at people, and that's really difficult. And that's difficult for, people with neurodivergence, autism. But there's lots of people will know, listening, that actually making eye contact is quite difficult if you have a visual impairment. If you're neurodiverse, you can, that those things are difficult. So it's about me having the confidence to just say to people, this is what this is for me. But there's lots of people who don't have that same confidence, and then the assumptions are made about them that aren't necessarily true, or aren't true.
Right. Okay. Because I'll be honest, when I first met you, because sometimes I don't make eye contact. I look away. So I didn't know either when I first met you. I thought you were sometimes when I talk to people, I look away because I'm thinking about what I'm saying. So I thought maybe that's what it could have been as well. But again, like you said, it's these assumptions that we have. And and it's
And
important.
I don't want to go around with a T-shirt saying,
right.
by the way,
Exactly.
BT dubs, I am visually impaired.
Yeah, right.
So
I
anything
hear
that you see that is strange, you know, I talked to Madison about the way in which I navigate a shop. If I'm by myself, you know,
Okay.
and I'll do that a lot. I'll do that a lot because I like walking around the shops. But actually, to be able to read a price tag, or to be able to kind of know what I'm looking at, I'll often have my phone out. I'll take a photograph of the price tag, then I'm enlarging the price tag.
Right.
My behavior in the store is not maybe one. I'm sure I'm watched.
Oh,
That's
man.
your security are watching
Especially
me.
as a
What
black
is this?
person too.
Well, exactly.
Wow,
you know,
okay.
I'm kind of ticking all the boxes for somebody that they're watching.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I am conscious. I'm very, very conscious of that. Sometimes I won't even ask. Sometimes I'm still super stubborn and I'm just like, I'll do it myself. And then I'll get on the wrong bus because I haven't asked somebody, or I'll, miss the train or not be able to. I'll just sit there and kind of think, well, something will happen. I still do it, and it's 30 years on. I still have those days where I'm just like, oh, I'm sure I can work it out. I don't need to bother anybody. I don't need to tell anyone. And then I say to myself afterwards, why didn't you just ask? Like I was on the train going to London the other week, and I wanted some food. It was very early, so I wanted some breakfast. Got to the car, the restaurant car, and I said, oh, do you have, what breakfast sandwiches do you have? And then the attendant proceeded to show me the menu, and I said, I can't read that. I'm visually impaired. And they looked horrified. Like there were two of them, and I felt bad because actually, like Tim said to me, you should just be asking for passenger assistance. But I'm always thinking there's someone else who needs that more than I do. I can get on the train. But actually those sorts of things, and they looked horrified, and they were really like, oh, can you get back to your seat? I don't know what they thought I was going to do, like ring Eleni and say, oh, by the way. And I was never going to do that. I just needed to but because of the way I'd presented myself and come across, they just sort of pointed and said, oh, this is what we have. And I was like, I'm going to need some help reading that because,
okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, but then it makes sense why you try your best to navigate things on your own as well, because it just because of that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's, again, if you're listening, that's important to kind of understand, to like remove those assumptions, right? In terms of how we view people, in terms of how people like express themselves.
And present themselves. Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you for sharing that. And what in terms of, I wanted to get in terms of masking.
Yeah.
So for you, it'd be different. It could be different for it's different for everyone, but for you specifically, how does that? How do you feel about that term? It's difficult because like the way you talk about things is like you don't mask it all. You may not mask it all, really.
I do. I absolutely do.
But I'm sure, yes, you do.
I absolutely do.
But in terms of, you want to walk us through that as well? In terms of,
I think in my recent experiences, I mean, I'm learning every day. But I can see it when I reflect back. I can see that I'm. So I will spend, if I'm preparing for something at work or an interview or whatever, I will spend hours and hours, probably more than I would let anybody know. Now everybody knows, but. I'm exposing myself. The mask is off. No. But I'll spend hours because I need to internalize so much of the work that I've done in order to be able to present it properly. For example, if I'm doing a presentation, I need to know what's on that. So I need, people need to know. But the way you can do that, presenter notes or things like that, I can't use any of that.
Right.
So I need to kind of almost memorize what I'm doing. So I'll spend time digging into the detail because I need to know what's on those slides, what's coming, because I can't stand in front of people and actually see what I'm presenting. The distance that it has to be. So I guess I'm masking in both senses. When I'm alone and I'm working, I'm constantly trying to cover for the fact that I'm visually impaired, and that it takes me twice as long to get half as far as anybody else.
Right.
You know, hence Tim reading for me. If I don't have those, and I have all of these things now at my disposal, but it still takes twice as long to get half as far.
And that makes me think, when you say twice as long to get half as far, who and how does that intersect with your race and ethnicity? Because we already say just in general. I mean, we have to work twice as hard anyway, by virtue of.
Well, it just does, and it just adds another layer of complexity to the whole picture. You know,
okay.
So I'm disabled. I'm a black woman. Working in a predominantly white environment. You know, it's becoming more diverse, but I am the only black person in my particular department at Durham and Able. I'm the only person of colour, not the only person with a disability. So there's lots of us who have additional needs.
Right.
But anybody who has a difference or differences is that awareness is heightened. And yeah, I do feel like I'm representing as well. So when I walk into a space, I always love the way Oprah Winfrey says, when she walks into a space, she brings everyone with her. She brings her grandma. She brings the ancestors. She brings everyone with her. Yes. And I try and remember that. I just remember my grandma's face, my mum's mum. She was not a very tall woman, but you wouldn't cross her. You would not cross her. And just so strong and determined, you know, and I try and bring those people with me. So behind the people who have gone before me, I try and bring them with me with all their flaws, whatever, but they went through what they went through, you know, so that I could be where I am today. I do that. And then in front of me, I keep those little girls that I talked about, those little girls in Africa, in Asia, in the UK, anyone who's coming up after me. I keep them in my sights as well as I do what I do. So the masking is exhausting. It's tiring. I get tired. I get frustrated with myself. I get upset that I can't do what I need to do. But I have the support now to do it. But it's all for a reason and for a purpose. So I don't stay down too long.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to go through that, but I also appreciate you sharing your story so people can have more of an understanding of it, right? Yeah. That's what makes it really important. So in terms of that, in terms of your life experiences, could you just share a particular moment that you consider a turning point in what you do?
I guess, I spent a long time in schools working with children and young people with special educational needs, and there were lots of different points along the way where I could see purpose in my work and what I was doing, definitely. But actually, I always thought about what was next for these kids. Like I've done my, not done my journey. I mean, I'm only 45. I've probably, I'll be 90 and I'll still be, still be dropping wisdom.
Exactly.
But I've kind of been through that journey and had the support that I had. But I meet people all the time who don't have half of the support that I had. I have obviously my faith, but there's people who don't have that faith. But that support of family, family, friends, a husband, a daughter, whatever is around me. Lots of people don't have that and are still in that place of kind of what am I going to do and what can I do? Now, moving into the world of supported employment, that was something that was brand new to me. You would think somebody who has all of my experience in special education and additional needs would have maybe known something about that. I didn't know. In me getting my jobs, my work was, I had the support that I knew to get. But this thing around supported employment, actually ensuring that people with additional needs, that their talents are seen, that they're seen for who they are, and that they can work with the right support, but they can make a positive contribution. it was just like, why has nobody ever told me about this before? And I just came across the role, as a as I was looking, thinking, right, I know there needs to be a change. I'm very aware of the fact that I know when there needs to be change, or when I believe God is shifting me into something different. And I have to take that step of faith and be and just be courageous, I suppose, in making that step. But coming into this work has definitely been a massive shift in the way I see what is possible for anyone who has an additional need.
And and also you mentioned family, because you're the eldest, right? But I should ask this before, but how did you? Maybe you're speaking for them, but what was the turning point for you in terms of being the eldest sibling when you were trying to navigate that experience? Because obviously the eldest sibling is typically the one who's either babysitting at times, if the parents want to leave, or just certain things like that. If you have, and there's a lot of y'all, so how did they interact? How did they interact with it now? Like, what are some of the experiences?
I mean, I still had to be the eldest, even with what I was going through. I still had to be that person, right. And through whatever difficulties we were facing as a family, I still had to be that person. My youngest sister is 11 years. There's 11 years between me and the youngest. She actually has the same condition, the same condition as I do, and between her, the two youngest especially, I remember making bottles. I remember making up the milk. I had a really bad accident actually making up the milk one time. Got quite severely burnt. That'll be in the book. Yeah, got quite severely burnt, but making up the bottle, and changing nappies, all of those sorts of things. I was there. I was heavily involved in that, and being and looking after them, cooking for them. I cooked at a very early age. That most Nigerian girls listening will know that that's what you do. If you're the eldest, you learn to cook at 7 or whatever it is. But yeah, navigating that and school and things like that. But then showing them as well. I think being that example to them, being that example to my daughter now, it has been really important. And you don't realize sometimes what it is you're planting in people, the way in which they see you move, the way in which they see you do things. I think, I said before, more is caught than taught. I like to speak.
More is caught than taught.
Yeah, I like to speak. You might have guessed. This might be part 3. You might have to do part 3. But actually, the way I go through life, letting people see my vulnerability as well, has been is really important.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so you're more caught than taught. Wow. Okay, yeah. I love that. I've never heard that one before. Okay,
it's true.
And yeah, that's actually very true. It's like do as I say, not do, but it's more about actions speak louder than words.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't always get it right. I know there's, it's not something that I always get right, but I have sisters and a daughter who will tell me how proud they are of who I am, because they see what I'm doing, and they struggle. They have their struggles. They still have their struggles. They still find things difficult. But they tell me that, and that's nice. That's nice to hear that people are proud of you. But I know then I'm doing my job, or what I was put here on this earth. Part of what I was put here on this earth to do is wrangle all these girls.
That's nice to hear, though. Okay. So now, in terms of the traditional narratives you share with us and the turning points in your life, how is your current work and what you do flipping the script? Right, and I know we can. There's so many things that you do. We can push it into like this. You talked about like pushing self-advocacy. Yeah. And I say like understanding needs, etc. Could you kind of expand
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that a bit?
yeah. So I guess in the work that I do day to day with Durham Enable and supported employment, we're all about, it's all about the putting the person with the needs at the center. What is it they want? You know, we have like values. There's like 12 of them. If you listen to Voices of Supported Employment, actually the episodes this week and next week are all around the values, but we have
nice.
you know, the 12 core values that we have. And one of the values is around giving that person choice and control, ensuring that they have choice and control in what is happening to them. So we're not a service that says you will do this job because we've got this vacancy available. We start by saying, who are you? What are your skills? What are your strengths? What do you want to do? What do you dream about doing? What have you dreamed about doing? If they haven't ever dreamt about doing anything, we help them do that by widening their perspective, opening their eyes to what's going on. You know, we flip the script because for many of our service users, our job seekers, they have come through life, one, having things decided for them because of their needs, having everything possibly decided for them. Yes, that you might have heard their voice here and there, but they haven't had a huge amount of say. A lot of what they've experienced has been done to them. Medically, you know, through all these assessments, everything done to you. Assessment. We're going to do this assessment on you. We're going to do this, you know, medical procedure on you. You're going to go to this school. You're going to do this. And actually, when they get to us, we focus on them. We focus on them with that, you know, with the guidance, and those who are then able to grow in that confidence and speak for themselves and advocate for themselves. It's just an amazing thing to see, you know. And self-advocacy doesn't always mean that you speak. I want to make that very clear. It doesn't always mean that I speak. Sometimes I need somebody else, in my big grown self, needs somebody else to speak for me. Sometimes working through the difficulties that I go through is just too much for me to talk about. So I need someone else, usually Tim. And he usually sorts it out.
That came in the back of my mind.
He usually sorts it out. Well, if I go to Tim, he's just like, right, I'm ready. You know, so I can go to him. And there's others now. I've got a growing network of people who I can go to and say, do you know what? I need help with this. And I can't necessarily tell you exactly. I'm trying to tell you as best as I can. So people will hear me speak and say, oh, well, she can speak for herself. Do you know, when I have to speak about my needs, if there's a problem, if I encounter a problem, sometimes the whole thing gets muddled in my head and it becomes really difficult. So self-advocacy is, yes, about you being able to speak for yourself, but also knowing when you might need someone else to advocate for you to get what you need, to get to where you need to be.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's about your individual story, but also that it's about bringing other people in, or people
absolutely
being able to, I guess, enhance your experience, right? Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Now, with the work that you do, where do you see yourself leaving, let's say, a lasting legacy, or just positively impacting others?
I don't think it's going to be one thing where I leave a legacy. I don't think it's one thing that I do. I try every day to live with purpose, to live in the purpose that I know I'm supposed to be living. So with everything I do, with every conversation I have, I try to leave something. I don't, you know, we talk about legacy and we think, and I always say, I'm going to be that 95-year-old woman in a rocking chair on her front porch, you know, that everybody walks past and say, oh, Bambi, just come and sit. You know, I have this vision that people will just come and sit with me. Okay. You know, I'll have time, you know, so you could just be walking along the street, you'll see me, and you can just come and sit and we'll chat, you know.
Right.
But actually, I don't know if I've got until 95. You know, there was a song I was listening to the other day, and it sparked. Her name's Madison Ryan Ward, and she does some Christian stuff. But there's a line in her song that says, "Only tomorrow's not promised, only yesterday is guaranteed." So I always I think, right, okay, well, tomorrow's not promised. I've got plans for Saturday, tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't know, and you know, God's very clear about you're not going to know the hour or the day or the time. So the day I've given you, do something with that day. So in every day I try. I don't always get it right. I'm a human, but I try and leave something with someone, or create something, leave some impact in some way that will say, okay, Bambi's legacy for, you know, Thursday was, her legacy for Friday the 20th of June is going to be this. So there you are. There's
man, that's a powerful quote. So you said tomorrow
is not promised,
but yesterday is guaranteed. That's a good title right there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Okay, I've never heard that one either. You dropping diamonds.
Well,
today.
This is a song. It's a song lyric. I listen to a lot, and I read a lot, so I get, you know,
that's good.
Just how I build my.
Okay, nice. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Now, how you feeling? We're towards
good.
The end.
Really good. Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy about this because it's working.
It's working.
That's what matters the most. So we, you know.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna get into the concluding part of the show where you'll offer us insight on rehumanization. And if you could reflect on your journey thus far, what do you know now that you wish you knew before?
What do I know now? Oh gosh, a lot of things. I know that I am capable of doing anything. You know, when people talk about you can do anything you put your mind to, I don't say that in that, yes, I can do anything. Driving a car, flying a plane, probably not something that Bambi French should be doing. I would have no passengers and there would be issues. You know. So let's put anything into perspective. But I know that if there's, you know, I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of things that I want to kind of create and do. And I absolutely believe that they are promptings from God to say, I don't think I get them just because that's just an idea. It's just God saying, have you seen this group of people here? Do you want to try and do something for them, or do you want to try and be involved in that? You know, maybe your work needs to look like this now. You know, not getting too kind of caught up in the here and now, but what is it that I need you to do? What is it that I have put in you right back from when you were being formed? You know, I was making you in that womb, in that warm space. I was putting all the stitches together. I was choosing all the colors, and I was choosing all the skills, and I was just like, oh, let's put a bit of that in her. Let's make her look like this. Let's make her speak like this. Let's put this bit of sense of humor in her. All of those things that I have created, the absolute masterpiece that I created. What is it you're gonna do with that? Never mind the parts that the world says are broken. Never mind, you know, the fact that, you know, you can't see as well as the next person. They have an issue that you don't know about as well, you know. Right. But what are you going to do with what I've given you? And so that, if I had walked out of the hospital thinking the way I think now, that would have been different. But then I always thought about the fact that I don't regret. All of it is part of the story, isn't it?
Yes.
All of it's part of the story, and there's just different chapters and different. And I would hope that my story looks like one of, not necessarily like an upward progress, just keep going up, but actually that when I've been on the hill, you can see the success. But also when I've been in the valley, and I've been in the valley a lot, you can see that I'm learning and that I'm growing in that space as well.
And that makes me think about your journey, because How does that work when you talk about chapters? Because they told you you'd be blind at 30.
Yeah.
Yet here you are.
I know, and I did notice. I've noticed that there has been a regression, a worsening of my sight since 15, but it's been pretty stable for a while. And maybe, we talked about healing and prayer and things like that. There was possibly some intervention that happened there to not completely lose my sight, because there's lots of people with this condition who have. But to be left with, I guess, just what I need. That's the kind of thing I need to hang on to, is that I have what I need. I might not have 20/20 vision, but I have what I need to do what I need to do. The next person with Stargardt's, or the one sitting opposite me or whatever, will have what they need as well. And their vision might be slightly different. My sister wears glasses for her condition, but then has other difficulties as well with it, in terms of her confidence and ability. But I just know that I have what I need, and I'll be given what I need each day to do what I need to do.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I was gonna ask, because it seems like when I say if they're giving you a diagnosis in terms of like, when I turn 30, it seems like that's definitely something to celebrate. But it's like that does have to be challenging. But in terms of like, it's like you're counting down the days, right?
And because you do worry, and I wouldn't say that even today, I'm almost 45. I still have in the back of my mind somewhere. It's not something that I kind of wake up every day and think, oh gosh, can I see less than I did yesterday? But I do think, how is this? I think about, well, if this gets worse than it is now, what will I need to do? So I'm kind of preparing myself. And lots of us, as we get older, will encounter disability and things like that. But I think when you're growing with one, and that that it's there. Some people, only encounter disability in their 60s, 70s, 80s,
right.
And are fine. But when you're actually like trying to navigate most of, if not all of your life with one, you do think about, well, okay, if this then happens, if I reach this stage. But also with that, I'm just like, maybe I just have to reach that stage and then figure it out. Maybe that's just another step,
Right, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you for sharing that. Now, we're at the last part of the show. Last question, part. All right?
Oh, that's sad.
Last question.
Come back.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we're going to have you back. Don't worry about that. We're going to have you back. We'll do like I started a free flow convo series. It's really good, actually. I just published the episode a few days ago. It's just more about us vibing on a certain topic or anything, really. We just kind of talk to each other. It gives me more of a chance to kind of express some of the research, the stuff that I do, and we just vibe off that. But I definitely have you back on for that. But now we've talked so much about your life, your journey, your experiences, how you navigated, and just it's just your story is just resiliency and power, right? And healing.
I hope so.
Hallelujah, baby.
I know. I think about it and I just think, resilient. Yeah, people say that. People will say that about me, that you are very resilient and extremely powerful. And I probably don't see it as much as other people do. I'm starting to realize that. But again, I look at people that I look up to, and past to present, and think, I still have a long way to go.
And I say that with care, because I know self-care is very important, because sometimes we tend to label women, but Black women in particular, as like this courageous that has to be this type of thing.
That's a problem in itself, because they expect a lot from us,
right? Exactly.
Without, and that causes lots of problems. I think we've spoken about healthcare and things like that. Again, we can speak about that next time. But
exactly. So but when I say that, I'm saying that in the place of love and in the place of like understanding your journey, and understand that it is a powerful story, right? And thank you for sharing it. But with that being said, what does rehumanization look like to you?
I think especially in this day and age, that we all recognize ourselves as being human. For a start, it's becoming increasingly difficult with AI, tech, all of the things that we've got to help us. That is great. I'm not demonizing technology at all. You know, I always say the tech is there as a tool for us, and yes, people use it for bad, but there's people who use it for good as well. You know, and this has happened since the beginning of time. Anything that has been placed in man's hand can be used for good or for evil. You can use a brick to break a window or build a house. Choose. Yes. And that's the same with technology now. I think that technology has opened doors for me and made the world, you know, a completely different place for me in the way I use it. So I love that. But yeah, the rehumanization is understanding that we're all human. We're all just human beings at the very base of everything that we do. We're just human beings. And yes, we want to make progress. Yes, we want to achieve. We want to do well. But we can't do that in isolation. We can't forget about the people who don't have access to maybe what we have. And it's just remembering that we can get so focused on what we're doing, so focused on what we need and what we want, that we forget that there might be just someone sitting next to us. Never mind the people in the world who need support, but there might be someone sitting next to us who just needs us to say, "How are you doing? How are you really doing?" You know, and getting that kind of connection with just a few people would make it better.
Okay, that's okay. So I hear you on that. So basically it's about understanding that we're all human, and at the same time understanding that we have our individual experiences, but to also understand that they're shared as well, that they should be shared experiences. So it's this idea of individual plus shared experience is something that we should definitely, we should always consider.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. Now, we're done. How you feeling? We're good? Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
Is there any social media handles that people can follow you on, Bambi?
Well, at Her Ability Co. You can that's the Instagram. It's not kind of I don't know what's the word. It's public, but it's not like active at the moment. But you can definitely find then the website and send me an email, or if you want, you can just say hi. Okay. But yeah, just that, and then just looking out for that. Obviously, Durham and Able, where I work, we've got a website and Facebook. Listen to the podcast, you'll get to hear my voice a lot.
Right.
But yeah, just different places. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Bambi French, y'all. To my vibers, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'll have you again for sure. That's everything.
Thank you.